Imagine you are standing at the edge of a prehistoric ocean. Not the ocean you know, warm, blue, sunlit. This one is different. The water is darker, denser. The surface moves in a way that doesn't quite match the wind. And then something rises. Not fast, slowly, deliberately. A barrel-shaped body, dark and massive, pushing up through the surface like a submarine breaking water. And then, the neck. Impossibly long, impossibly thin, weaving upward, vertebra by vertebra, until a small, flat head turns and looks at you from a height that has absolutely no business existing on a living animal. You are looking at something that should not be real. Here's the twist. For nearly 200 years, the world's greatest scientists agreed with you. They looked at the bones, they ran the anatomy, they consulted the physics, and they concluded, in formal, published papers, that this creature was a biological impossibility, a fabrication, a mistake, something assembled from parts that didn't belong together. They were looking at Plesiosauria, and they were catastrophically, completely, humiliatingly wrong. This is the story of the animal that broke science's imagination and refused to stop being real. She was 12 years old the first time she pulled a monster out of a cliff. By the time she was 30, she had rewritten the history of life on Earth, and the scientific establishment had done everything in its power to pretend she didn't exist. Her name was Mary Anning. She was born in 1799 in the small coastal town of Lyme Regis, England, where the cliffs are made of something extraordinary. Compressed time. Layer upon layer of Jurassic mudstone, loaded with the compressed remains of creatures that lived 180 million years ago. Every winter storm strips a little more cliff away. Every storm reveals something new. Mary learned to read the rock before she learned to read books. At 11 or 12, the records disagree, she helped excavate the first complete ichthyosaur skeleton ever found. A 4-meter marine reptile with enormous eyes and a dolphin's body, built for speed. Scientists were fascinated. They named the species. They published the papers. They did not name her in those papers. But that discovery was just the opening act. In 1823, Mary Anning found something else in those cliffs. Something that would take the scientific world a full decade to stop arguing about. She found a plesiosaurus. When the most famous anatomist in the world saw the measurements, he didn't say extraordinary. He said fraud. And he put that in writing. The skeleton was nearly complete, roughly 1.5 meters long, superbly preserved in the dark Jurassic shale, every bone in place, every joint articulated. It was, by any standard, one of the most important fossil discoveries in history. Mary Anning knew exactly what she had. She had been reading the rock her whole life. She had found ichthyosaurs, belemnites, ammonites. She understood anatomy in the way only someone who physically excavates it can. This animal was different from anything she had seen. The neck alone was extraordinary. 25 vertebrae curving upward, giving it a proportion no known creature possessed. The skeleton reached the scientific establishment in London. Papers were read aloud at the Geological Society. Illustrations were circulated. And then, a letter arrived from Paris. Baron Georges Cuvier, arguably the greatest comparative anatomist who had ever lived, the man who effectively founded the science of paleontology as a formal discipline, had reviewed the descriptions and the sketches. His verdict was devastating. The skeleton, he wrote, was almost certainly a composite forgery. The neck-to-body ratio was anatomically impossible. No vertebrate could function with a neck that long relative to its trunk. The mechanics didn't work, the physics didn't allow it, the biology had no precedent. Someone, he suggested, had assembled bones from multiple different animals to create a sensational fake. He was the most respected name in the field. He was completely wrong. Cuvier retracted. But what came next was somehow more disturbing than the forgery he feared, because the truth was stranger than the fraud. More specimens emerged. From England, from Germany, from Belgium, each one confirming the same impossible silhouette: the barrel body, the 4 enormous paddle limbs, the elongated neck, the small skull. Cuvier, to his credit, acknowledged the error. The animal was real. But accepting its reality only opened the door to deeper confusion. Because once scientists agreed Plesiosaurus existed, the questions multiplied faster than the answers. How did it move? The paddle limbs were unlike anything alive. Not fins, not legs, not flippers in any familiar sense. Early reconstructions showed them rowing like a boat's oars. Later analysis suggested something more like underwater flight, the same motion used by sea turtles and penguins, a figure-8 sweep that generated lift and thrust simultaneously. The debate is not fully resolved even today. How did it hold that neck? A neck half the length of your body, lined with more vertebrae than a giraffe, sitting on a torso built more like a sea turtle than a sea snake. Early Victorian illustrations show it raised high above the water, swan-like, scanning the surface for fish. Modern biomechanical analysis says that's almost certainly wrong. The neck's musculature and joint structure suggest it was held mostly horizontal, submerged, sweeping through schools of fish like a slow-moving trap. The elegant swan posture is probably a fantasy. And that image, the one burned into every school book, every museum diorama, every documentary establishing shot, may be one of the most persistent scientific mistakes in popular paleontology. Forget the graceful, long-necked silhouette. The real Plesiosaurus was something far more disturbing. A patient, silent predator that may have hunted in a way we have no modern reference for. Strip away the Victorian illustrations, forget the documentaries. Look at what the fossil record actually tells you. Plesiosaurus was not a surface animal. It didn't cruise elegantly at the waterline, neck raised, posing for Mesozoic postcards. It was a deep water ambush hunter, built for slow, powerful movement through open ocean. Its eyes were large, disproportionately large for its skull size, adapted for hunting in low-light conditions, in the murk far below the surface. Its teeth were long, thin, and needle-like, interlocking when the jaw closed to form a cage. Not for crushing, not for tearing, for trapping, for closing around a school of small fish or cephalopods and ensuring nothing got out through the gaps. And it swallowed gastroliths, stones, deliberately. Dozens of them sitting in its stomach. We know this because we've found the stones in place inside the rib cage. The leading theory is that they served as ballast, helping the animal control its depth without constant muscular effort. It could hang motionless in the water column, expending almost no energy, waiting. Imagine what it looked like from below. That vast, flat body blocking the light from above. Those 4 enormous paddles barely moving. That long neck drifting slowly down through the dark water toward you. Patient, efficient, inevitable. The animal that couldn't exist survived for 135 million years. For context, the entire lineage of our genus, Homo, is roughly 2 million years old. Plesiosaurs outlasted us by a factor of 67, and we've been here for a geological eye blink. Plesiosauria first appeared in the early Triassic, roughly 203 million years ago. By the time of their extinction, they had diversified into dozens of species across two major body plans: the long-necked, small-headed forms, like Plesiosaurus itself, and the short-necked, enormous-skulled Pliosaurids, animals like Predator X, with a bite force estimated at 33,000 psi. They survived the Triassic-Jurassic boundary extinction event. They adapted through 100 million years of changing ocean chemistry, shifting continents, rising and falling sea levels. They were finally killed by the same event that ended the non-avian dinosaurs, the Chicxulub impactor, 66 million years ago. A rock roughly 10 kilometers across, traveling at 20 kilometers per second, vaporizing on impact with the force of 1 billion nuclear weapons, throwing enough debris into the upper atmosphere to block sunlight globally for years. The plesiosaurs had survived everything the planet threw at them for 135 million years. It took an asteroid. Here's what I want you to hold on to from this video. The greatest anatomist in the world, a man who spent his entire career studying bones, looked at a real skeleton and called it a fake. Not because he was incompetent, because the animal was so far outside the boundaries of what he believed possible that his brain rewrote the evidence. That's not a 19th century problem. That's a human problem. Every generation of scientists has a set of things it knows cannot exist. And every generation has its Mary Anning moment. Someone pulling something impossible out of the rock, holding it up to the light and saying, "Look, it's here. It's real." Now what are you going to do with that? The question is whether you're the one who writes the letter from Paris or the one at the cliff's edge, reading what the rock is trying to tell you.